All right, welcome to another deep dive, everyone. Today we are talking mobile optimization, really a crucial topic for pretty much everyone out there with a website these days.
It really is. Um, it's kind of funny to think back even just a few years. I mean, I remember doing most of my browsing on, a desktop or a
Yeah.
laptop,
Yeah.
but now it's like I pull out my phone for everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Shopping,
Yeah.
checking email, everything. So it's a huge shift, and it's definitely not slowing down.
Yeah, and that's exactly what our source material for this deep dive really digs into. We've got a whole podcast episode here all about on-page SEO, and they really hit on mobile optimization being like this, fundamental shift is how we think about websites.
Absolutely. And I think the first thing to wrap your head around is mobile first indexing. It's not just a trendy term that people are throwing around.
Mhm.
It's really like a fundamental shift in how Google sees your website.
Right?
Like imagine you're Google
Yeah.
and you're trying to sort through billions of websites out there. You need some kind of system, a way to prioritize. So what they've done is they said, okay, we're going to use the mobile version of a website. Yeah. As like the main thing for ranking and indexing.
Okay.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Most users are on mobile.
Right. So Google's putting mobile first. But what does that actually mean for someone with a website? Like, is it really that big of a deal if your site's not totally optimized?
It's huge. I mean, think about it. You could have this amazing website, beautiful design, tons of great content. But let's say the mobile version is, I don't know, it's slow, clunky, the text is tiny. Google's going to look at that and say, uh-oh, this is not a good experience for my users.
Right.
And what happens? Your rankings drop, you disappear from those search results. Potential customers, they go to your competitors,
Ouch.
and suddenly, that beautiful desktop website doesn't really matter so much anymore.
Yeah, that's scary. It's almost like, you're showing up to a job interview in your pajamas, even if you have,
Yeah,
a fantastic outfit for a fancy dinner later.
yeah, exactly. First impressions are everything, right?
Mhm.
And in the digital world, that mobile site, that's often that first impression.
Yeah, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression.
Exactly. And it's not just about Google either. I mean, think about it from the user's perspective.
Right.
You're trying to find something on your phone, like let's say a local restaurant, right?
Yeah.
And the website takes forever to load. The menu's impossible to read. You can't even find their address without like zooming in and out a bunch of times. Are you going to stick around?
No way.
Exactly.
I'm moving on.
You're already on to the next restaurant on the list.
Exactly. So it's really about user experience then, not just like technical SEO.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we're talking mobile optimization.
Yeah.
What, like the must-haves then? What makes a site truly mobile optimized?
Yeah. So it's not just shrinking down your desktop site, right? It's about tailoring the entire experience for mobile users.
Okay.
And there are a few key aspects I think are really important.
All right, let's hear it.
So the first one is responsive design. Think of it this way. Your website's like water, okay?
Okay.
And the device that it's displayed on, that's like the container.
All right.
So responsive design means your site adapts to the shape and size of that container,
Huh. Interesting.
whether it's a tiny smartphone screen or a huge desktop monitor.
So it's like those pants in your closet that magically fit perfectly no matter what.
Exactly.
Okay, so how do we actually achieve that magical responsive design?
It's all about using flexible layouts and images. So instead of fixed pixel sizes, we use relative units, like percentages.
So
So everything kind of adjusts proportionally to the screen size.
Gotcha.
It's a little bit of coding magic involved, but
Yeah.
the end result is a site that looks great and works perfectly across all these different devices.
So you've got the site looking good on any screen size. It's got to be fast too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Speed is critical.
Yeah, we live in a world of instant gratification.
Exactly. I mean, nobody wants to wait around for a website to load, especially on their phone.
Especially on their phone.
Yeah, and our source material actually mentioned some pretty compelling stats on this. Like, there are studies that have shown that even a 1-second delay in page load time can lead to something like a 7% reduction in conversions,
Wow.
which is huge.
That's a lot of potential customers you're losing.
Yeah, it has a huge impact on a business's bottom line.
So we've got this, beautifully designed site. It's responsive. It adapts to any screen size. It loads quickly. What else?
Well, think about how you use your phone. It's all about touch, right?
Yeah.
So your website needs to be designed with that in mind.
Okay.
So that means things like big finger-friendly buttons and links.
Right.
Easy to navigate menus,
Yeah.
intuitive gestures like swiping and tapping.
It makes sense.
It really should be like a natural extension of the user's hand.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely been on sites where, like, you're trying to click a button, and it's so tiny, you keep hitting the wrong thing.
Oh, I know.
It's so frustrating.
Yeah, and that frustration leads to people leaving, abandoned carts,
Right.
all that. So yeah, your site has to be designed with touch in mind.
It's like trying to play the piano with boxing gloves on, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Versus just using
You
your,
need
like,
that precision
yeah,
and control.
for those tiny little buttons.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the design, like making sure the site looks good and is easy to use on mobile. But what about the content itself? Does that need to be, mobile optimized too?
Oh, absolutely. Content adaptation is key.
Okay.
It's not just about, shrinking down the font size. It's about really thinking about what mobile users need and prioritizing that.
Right, because they're often on the go.
Exactly.
Maybe in a rush, they just want that information quickly.
Exactly. They don't have the time to scroll through tons of text.
So how do we adapt the content then? What does that actually look like?
So let's say you have a recipe website. On your desktop version, you might have this long backstory.
Yeah.
About where the recipe came from and all that. But on mobile,
Yeah.
people probably just want to see those ingredients right away.
Yeah, totally.
You might be standing in the grocery store aisle, phone in hand, ready to shop.
Right. Makes sense. It's a
Right.
completely different context,
That's
like
right.
reading a novel versus checking your shopping list.
Exactly.
Okay, so content adaptation is important. What about navigation?
Also super important. Mobile menus, they need to be simple, really easy to use, clear labels,
Mm-hmm.
and you gotta have a prominent search bar.
Yeah,
People shouldn't have to hunt around for what they need. Every tap counts on a small screen.
totally. Now, speaking of making things easy, our source material also goes into some more, like, specific mobile optimization techniques. And there was one that really jumped out at me, AMP. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, AMP stands for Accelerated Mobile Pages.
Okay.
It's essentially like stripping down a web page to its bare essentials.
Mm.
The text, the images, the core content. And then you put it on a super fast server
Yeah.
that's optimized for really fast delivery.
So it's like the express lane for mobile content.
Exactly.
But is there a reason why not every website would use AMP?
Yeah, I mean, there are some trade-offs.
Okay.
AMP pages, they can be kind of limited in terms of functionality and design.
Gotcha.
So they're great for, like, static content,
Right.
articles, blog posts, things like that.
Makes sense.
But for more complex websites, with lots of interactive elements, it might not be the best fit.
So it's kind of like choosing between a really sleek sports car and a spacious SUV.
Yeah, perfect analogy.
They both have their pros and cons.
Exactly. It just depends what you need.
Okay, so that's AMP.
Yeah.
What about forms? I feel like everyone has struggled with a bad form on mobile at some point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like those tiny little input fields,
Yes.
the drop-down menus that are impossible to select.
Ugh, the worst.
Those are all things that really need a mobile-first approach.
Yeah, it's like you're playing a game of Operation. But like with your thumbs?
And the stakes are higher.
Yeah, because if you mess up, you might abandon the whole purchase.
Exactly.
So how do we make these forms more user-friendly on mobile?
Well, for one, think about using input masks. So for phone numbers or credit card details, so users don't have to switch between keyboards.
Okay.
And
yeah.
make those submit buttons nice and big.
Yeah.
No more accidental clicks.
All right, so we've talked about design, content, even forms. What about like the SEO side of things? How do we make sure our mobile site is, optimized for Google?
Yeah, so that's where mobile SEO best practices come in.
Okay.
And one of the most important things is consistency. Between your mobile and desktop versions,
Okay.
Google doesn't want to see two completely different websites.
Right, so it's not just about making a mini version of the desktop site. It's got to be a cohesive experience.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And if you do need slightly different content for mobile, there's this thing called a canonical tag.
Canonical tag.
It's basically a little piece of code that tells Google, hey, these two pages, they're basically the same. They're just optimized for different screens.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it prevents any confusion. Make sure Google sees them as one entity.
Like a behind-the-scenes peek at how your website works.
Exactly.
So Google doesn't accidentally, penalize you or anything?
Right, exactly.
Okay, so canonical tags are important. What about metadata?
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
Because, on mobile, you have even less space to grab someone's attention
Exactly.
in those search results.
You have less space. So your title tags and meta descriptions, they need to be super concise and compelling.
Like writing a haiku for your website.
Exactly. Every word counts.
Now, our source material also mentions something called structured data. I've heard of it, but I don't really know what it is.
So structured data is basically like speaking Google's language.
Okay.
It's adding extra bits of code to your website.
Yeah.
That helps Google understand what your content is about. So for example, if you have a recipe page, you can use structured data to specify the ingredients, cooking time, nutritional information, all that.
So it's like adding labels and categories to your content.
Exactly.
So Google can organize it better.
And that can lead to something called rich snippets
Rich snippets.
in the search results.
Okay.
So imagine you're searching for a recipe. One listing, it just shows the title and the URL.
Okay.
But another one, it has star ratings, cooking time, maybe even a little thumbnail image.
Right.
Which one are you more likely to click on?
The one with all the extra stuff, obviously.
Exactly.
It's much more visually appealing.
And that's the power of structured data.
Yeah.
It helps you stand out. And it gives users that information they need right away.
So we've covered like responsive design, content adaptation, even structured data. There's one more thing I want to touch on before we move on, and that's local SEO, especially for businesses with a physical location.
Oh yeah, local SEO is huge, especially in the mobile world.
Right, because people are using their phones to find businesses near them all the time.
All the time. Like if you're craving pizza
Yeah.
and you're out and about, you're not going to search best pizza in the world.
Right.
You're going to search pizza near me.
Exactly.
And if your business isn't showing up in those local results,
Yes.
you're missing out.
Big time.
Big time.
Okay, so how do we optimize for local search then?
Well, first things first. Make sure your Google My Business profile is up to date.
Okay.
Accurate information. Use location-based keywords in your content
Gotcha.
and encourage customer reviews.
Right. Those are all important signals for Google.
Exactly.
To know that you're a relevant business in that area.
It's like planting a digital flag in your neighborhood.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of things we should be doing for mobile optimization. But what about the things we shouldn't be doing? Our source material also highlighted some common mistakes. That can really hurt your mobile SEO.
Oh, yeah. There are definitely some pitfalls to avoid.
So let's dive into those cautionary tales, shall we?
Let's do it. So, yeah, I mean, like I was saying, there are some definite pitfalls to avoid when it comes to mobile optimization.
Okay, so like what's the first mistake people should be watching out for?
Well, one of the biggest ones is blocking resources.
Blocking resources.
Yeah, it might seem counterintuitive,
Okay.
but sometimes when we're trying to make our mobile sites load faster, we can accidentally end up blocking Google from seeing the full picture.
Oh, interesting. So like what kind of resources are we talking about here?
So things like CSS files, JavaScript, even images.
Okay.
You might think, well, Google doesn't need to see all that stuff.
Yeah.
Just the core content, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, Google's crawlers, they need to be able to understand your site's structure, its design, its functionality to, really assess its quality and relevance.
So it's like trying to judge a book by its cover, but the cover is like missing half the picture.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not getting the full story.
You're not getting the full story.
Okay. So avoid blocking resources. What else?
Another big one is those intrusive pop-ups.
Yeah.
We all know how annoying those can be on desktop.
They're worse.
But on a small mobile screen, they're just, like, unbearable.
Yeah. I've definitely rage quit some websites because of a bad pop-up.
And what do we do when we feel trapped like that? We hit that back button
Yeah.
as fast as we can.
Exactly.
So if you're going to use pop-ups, which, I mean, some people do,
Yeah.
make sure they're strategically placed, non-intrusive, easy to dismiss.
Right. Don't make me like fight to get to the content.
Exactly. Don't sacrifice user experience.
Because you want that quick lead capture or whatever.
Like the difference between a polite salesperson
Right.
and someone who, like,
Yeah.
accosts you on the street,
Right.
you're way more likely to engage with a person who respects your space.
Okay, that's a great analogy. So we've talked about pop-ups. What about just general readability?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have the most beautiful mobile site in the world, but if the text is tiny and it's all cramped together, it's going to be a nightmare to use.
Yeah, totally.
Remember,
Yeah.
people are often viewing these sites on the go, right?
Mhm.
Maybe they're in bright sunlight or a dimly lit room. You really got to make sure that the text is large enough to read comfortably.
Right.
Use plenty of white space. Choose a font that's, clear and legible on a screen.
So it's like the difference between reading a well-formatted document and like a wall of text.
Here you
You
go.
want to make it easy to scan and digest the information.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've talked about readability. Anything else to watch out for?
I think one of the most common mistakes is simply a lack of testing.
Lack of testing.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't launch a product without testing it,
Yeah.
right? Same goes for your mobile website.
So don't just assume that because it looks good on your phone.
Exactly. It's going to look good on every device out there.
Yeah, there are so many different screen sizes.
Resolutions, operating
It
systems.
can be overwhelming.
Yeah, so test, test, test.
And the good news is, our source material actually provides some really great tools for that.
Oh yeah, there's some fantastic tools out there.
So let's talk about some of those. What's the first one we should check out?
Well, first up, there's Google's mobile-friendly test.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
It's a really quick and easy way to see how Google views your site on mobile.
Okay,
You just enter your URL, and it gives you a pass or fail grade
interesting.
and some helpful recommendations.
Like a little report card for your website.
Exactly.
I like it. Now, if we're looking for something a little more in-depth, our source also recommends Google Search Console.
Oh yeah, Search Console is a gold mine of information.
Okay.
It can track your site's performance, identify crawling errors. You can even see which keywords are driving traffic to your site.
So it's like having a direct line to Google then.
Pretty much.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it can give you some really valuable insights.
Okay, so that's Google Search Console. What about Chrome DevTools?
DevTools is a set of tools that are built right into the Chrome browser.
Okay.
Really handy for developers. You can simulate different devices, analyze loading performance, even debug code.
Wow, so it's like a virtual lab.
Yeah, you can really get under the hood of your site.
Okay, cool. And there's also Page Speed Insights, right?
Right, so PageSpeed Insights focuses specifically on loading speed.
Okay.
It analyzes your site on both mobile and desktop, gives you a performance score,
Okay.
and some really specific suggestions for improvement.
So you can really pinpoint those areas where your site might be slowing down.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Now, the last tool our source mentions is Lighthouse.
Ah, Lighthouse.
What's so special about this one?
So Lighthouse is kind of like
Yeah.
a comprehensive audit of your website.
Okay.
It evaluates performance,
Okay.
accessibility, SEO, even best practices for progressive web apps.
Wow, so it's like the ultimate checkup.
It's like having a whole team of experts examine your site.
And give you like a detailed report card.
Exactly.
That's incredible. And all these tools are free.
Free and readily available.
Amazing. So there's really no excuse not to use them.
Yep, no excuse.
All right. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, exploring all the ins and outs of mobile optimization.
Yeah, we've talked about the why, the how,
Hmm.
even the what not to do's.
Exactly. But before we wrap up, I want to give you a chance to leave our listeners with some final thoughts.
You know, after this deep dive, I think the biggest takeaway is that mobile optimization is just, it's not optional anymore.
Right.
It's essential for any website that wants to succeed in today's world.
Absolutely.
It's about creating those experiences
Yeah.
that are not just user-friendly, but also like aligned with how Google sees and ranks websites.
So it's not just about, making your site look pretty on a phone.
Right, it's bigger than that.
It's about the whole picture.
It's about the whole picture.
Okay. Any final words of wisdom?
You know, just remember,
Hmm.
this landscape is constantly changing.
Mm-hmm.
What works today might not work tomorrow.
Yeah, that's the nature of the internet.
So stay curious, keep learning,
Interesting.
keep testing.
All right, well, on that note, I think we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And we'll catch you next time for another exploration of the world of knowledge.